Welcome back to the Profit School by Measure You podcast. This is the Business Unfiltered edition, a conversation between myself, Chris Mercer, and of course, my buddy, my partner, Jeff Sauer, who you see to the left or right of me, depending upon how we decided to set this up. Today, we are going to talk about a little debate, something different. This is something that Jeff and I were kind of talking about, and we're like, actually, we're maybe on opposite sides of the coin on this one. We're going to talk about, can AI actually build a brand? And we're going to debate that a little bit because I kind of think it can. Jeff kind of thinks maybe not. So, Jeff, I'm going to throw it over to you. Let's start this debate with the starting positions. What is your starting position on this? And I feel like everybody should take a vote right now. What do you think? Is it a yes or a no mentally?
This is like our, pardon the interruption right here. No, AI can't build your brand because it doesn't understand. It's not you. And I think you need humans to build brands. I think that you need to have the work, the effort, the strategy, all these different things. I think AI can do some of those things. Most of the time, it does a pretty poor job. And so ultimately, if you want to build a brand, you need to do it yourself. And AI can enhance it, but no, AI cannot build a brand. Prove me wrong, Mercer.
So, and this is where it's going to get into some nuance, and this is what I was afraid with this topic. But I agree with you that AI by itself, automated, cannot build a brand, and it never ever will. Like, that's not going to be a thing. And if it is, it'll be a crappy brand because a billion of them will exist, which means it won't be a brand, right? It's sort of because it'll commodify. Humans have to be in charge no matter what. So I'm not saying humans are out of the loop. Humans are in the loop. I think the challenge is humans are not building their brand with AI because they don't know they can. And so that is the crux, I guess, of my argument on this would be you should be able to build your brand through AI tools, not without the AI tools. So are you saying, and again, that might be fine. We can kind of agree on this point right away. It'd be like, I know humans in the loop. So we're not talking about no humans. We're not talking about automated AIs. We're just talking about humans in a loop, but how much effort is the human putting in? In my opinion, the human doesn't have to do a whole lot of effort at all. It just needs the direct AI to build the brand.
Yeah, so it's interesting because like I think there's a lot of that component in place. You know, when I did a 90-day video challenge back in 2018, and I'd have to come up with the topic. I had to get on my front of my camera and record something. I'd do Camtasia stuff. I would get it all ready to go, and then I would hand it to our video editor. He'd piece it together, come up, I'd even have to come up with a description, the name of it, the name of the video, and everything. Then he would, and this is like all on a Trello board, it's like a waterfall thing. And then he would pass it on he'd put it on YouTube, or I'd have to publish it on YouTube. Then we'd write a blog post about it. Kyle from our team would do that. And then he'd write the blog post and publish it. And, basically a video a day for 90 days, even weekends, took about our entire lives. It was 3 people's full lives, right? Yeah. And so the question would be, could AI do a 90-day challenge now, or what do you need? So I'm doing a 90-day challenge right now, just so everybody knows. Every weekday, I'm doing a video. So by the time you watch this thing, I'll have done over 2 months straight of the 90-day challenge. So 60 days of that will have been in the can and recorded. And I will tell you that a video a day is easier now than it was before with the aid of AI. So for example, if I figure out what the topic is, I can use vidIQ, and that'll give me an idea of what I should name it, what keywords this is related to, what the title should be. It even generates a dumpy thumbnail, but that makes things easier. And then it will actually create a script for me. But the thing is that it does that, but then I still have to rewrite the script for my expertise. If I just go with what they're saying, it totally just is like rambling.
And just because it's like boring. Generic kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So I can do that, but I can get a video, and then I still have to do the stuff where I do the screen grab or the tactical pieces in there. That's still all me. That's like 100% me, or a clip from something that you did or whatever. So that's actually, I have to do a lot on that one. And that can stress you out, even if they tell you the topic. Like the subject matter expertise is the one thing that AI can't create. So they'll never be able to do that as well as me, unless it's just general purpose knowledge. But I don't think you're going to build a brand off of just generic knowledge. It has to be applied to yourself. And then it also, I need a video editor. I know there's video editing tools that can do a pretty good job of getting rid of your bad takes and stuff like that, matching the audio, throwing some B-roll in there. But generally with a human decision, it's going to be better. And then the posting, like, is this actually something you want to post out there? I can create automated clips, but they're usually not very good and they're not hitting the mark. And so what I've found is that there's AI tools that take that full day for 3 people to get a single video out, or maybe 4 hours. It gets it down to, if that was 12 combined hours before, now we can get it to about 4 combined hours. So we're taking a third of the time to do something, but it's still, we have to have a whole lot of human interaction. And so if that's what a brand is going through all that stuff, I just don't think that AI can build a brand in that way. But it can save you time, essentially.
All right. So I'm gonna give you some alternative tactics that could potentially use AI to collapse time even faster. Yeah. And it's everything that you were talking about in your process is what I was doing. I was thinking, where's the human doing most of the work? Mm-hmm. And that's the part I was writing down, going, okay, well, this is the part that AI should be doing. Anything, and I really believe this, like anything that the human feels, and I'm not talking physical labor yet, though that will obviously happen in about 20 years too, probably within that, but the mental labor, the mental effort we all go through. And that's what you were talking about when you get this generic script and then you kind of go like, well, I get the general flow, but I would never say it like this. Now you're going to rewrite every paragraph in your voice. So something you can do, and this is what I have found. I'm building out right now, but the early results are decent, which is to have for lack of a better word, a digital twin of yourself. Mm-hmm. Here's how Jeff says these things. Jeff never says this, and he always says that, right? Because I've got a bunch of Mercerisms where I won't say certain things. Like I always call accuracy the A word when I'm trying to measure you, because I need people to realize like accuracy is not worth the thing, and I have a certain way of doing that. But we also have the brand voice, and this goes back to your like, how does the brand speak about stuff? Now, this is still important. You still need that separation, otherwise you're generic. Like, so in our case with Measure You, we have the Measure Marketing Framework. That's a brand kind of within that brand. It teaches Kia, right? This concept of questions, information, and actions, and that process. That's a brand, right? With Profit School, we've got productivity reporting systems versus the project management nightmare that everybody keeps trying to fix instead of just replacing with productivity reporting because it works better. But it's like productivity reporting, something different, right? It's a brand thing. So all of those could be captured into a Google Doc that is essentially a set of instruction manuals that you could put into a gem, like a Gemini gem, because we're using Gemini just because everything's integrated with our workspace accounts already. You could throw it in that Gemini gem, say, here's the instructions on what brand voice is for the company that we're talking about, Measure You or Profit Squad. Create one for both. Then I would have one for your way of delivering it. Here's the ways that Jeff delivers tone. So it understands this is the Jeff character now, and this is how Jeff does it. Run that through. So then you've got your generic script as your input. So you create a gem that basically says, I'm going to give you the generic script that you're giving me. Go through here and rewrite it. In other words, it does the first version of that. And then you can still do the same rating system that we talk about all the time, where it's like rated on a scale of 1 to 10, likely to produce the end result, yada, yada, yada. Do all of that. It'll give you, my guess, it would give you a much more useful version that's closer to how you would actually say stuff. So you could do less editing along the way. You could get to recording faster as opposed to planning how you're going to say stuff faster. And then how to do that, how we would do that, because we don't have this for you yet, but this is how I would do it, is I would go through the ping pong prompting that we talked about in the previous episode. Episode was at 102. And then with that, I would basically say, I need you, and I'm going to talk to AI here. I would say, I need the result that I want a bunch of questions that I can have Jeff answer and just talk through on like a recorder that you can just audio record it because it'll make a transcript of that. Answer these questions. And then when you have all those answers, you will now know everything about tone and how Jeff references stuff as specific to Measure You. Okay, now as specific to everything Profit School teaches. Do that. And that's how I would train and build out this Google Doc instruction manual that we could then use for the gem. So that's how I would use AI to say we could probably push it a little bit further than we currently are. It's awesome that you're using it to get started. It can probably do 80 or 90% of the journey, and maybe we're only using it for 40% right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that's how you get from 12 hours to 4 hours. That's the usage of AI right now. Exactly. But you're right. The human element and the mental part is the biggest challenge for me right now, is that I come up with the topic, but then I still have to really make sure that it's good. And that to me is a brand. Like a brand is enforcing of quality. It's having standards. It's having these things that AI doesn't really give a crap about, because that's not what they're paid to do. They're not paid to develop your brand. They're paid to, well, they're not even paid, but like the model is there to solidify their brand and to compete on features. And so that's really interesting, because that is the hardest part. And I do think that if I, and the other thing is like just taking the time to do that. Like the script is good enough, and if I edit it, I can get that done in an extra 10 minutes. But I sort of dread it, and I've gotten to the point where sometimes I just don't want to do a video, because I don't want to deal with editing that crap, and I don't want to have to deal with like, why doesn't it know this for me? So I don't want to deal with the dumbness of AI. And so then it's funny, it makes me double down more on the manual piece. Or just avoid it, versus I think if I did have the efficiency, if I did have templates, like, hey, here's a template, here's an example, Mercer, like vidIQ gives me a script, but that doesn't match. Like then I ask Gemini to rewrite that script in a better way, and it actually adds timestamps in there, it adds editing cues, and it adds stuff and then I have to go clean that out or reread it. So I've actually found that these things, they don't understand me. And I think that what you're saying would make that happen. Let's say that reduces an hour for us. Then as far as like editor notes, and things like that, and making sure that script already has the stuff for the editor. Here's the type of B-roll you put in there. Here's the type of editing instructions that's in the script already. That could reduce another hour probably of that thing for both the editor and me. Adding B-roll and visual cues in there, like, hey, if it generated the image, that's cool. There's the Google video that just does that for you, where it actually will generate B-roll for you. Some of it, I don't think that it's actually automated, but it's pulling from a library of different videos, that can visualize that. That's pretty cool. That can really reduces down to, let's say it's 2 hours now. But I do wonder if, like approvals, that still needs to happen, but maybe approvals even can be measured with AI, like, hey, Descript, find the best take, or watch this thing and make sure that there's no double takes. Make sure we're not saying the same thing twice. Can you TBV it with AI? Okay, that reduces probably another 45 minutes out of that thing. So I think we can get it down to an hour. But I do worry with all these templates and all this stuff. Are you really a brand anymore? Are you really a personal brand anymore, or are you just corporate? Are you just a machine? Because at what point does that human element go away and then you're no longer authentic? Because I do feel like me reading off a script doesn't feel as authentic as if I was doing something extemporaneously, as if I was just doing something like this. This podcast is a prime example. I talk completely different when I'm talking to you on this podcast than I do when I'm doing a stand-up on my camera reading off of a teleprompter. So how does that work? Like, can you really build a brand without that level of spontaneity, without that level of authenticity? And that's the part I don't know.
Remember, you're still the point of creation with this, right? You're still like, so let's come up with a recent example that I went through with Profit School. So I was going through and we were doing this big Gemini training, and I was trying to come up with a name, because I believe in branding. I think branding is going to be so much more important in the future than it is now, even, right? It's going to make a massive comeback. And I think it's important that people start doing that. But you have to brand everything. You want an easy to remember, easy to recall name for everything that is powerful, relevant, shareable, right? So that people can talk about it and get word of mouth and everything else that goes in there. So it does take some thought. And back in the day, I would just have to think about stuff and just guess and then hope it worked. Now I can go to AI and say, hey, because this is exactly what I did for the ping pong prompting, where it's like I went through it and I did all my stuff and I was coming up with my prompts and I said, listen, do me a favor, analyze all of our conversation, because I want to come up with what this is. Tell me what is different and unique about this process of prompting that you and I, this conversation. Analyze the conversation for what I was trying to do and the intention behind it, and then tell me in what this would be called. Right. And I want 10 names. And it came up with the most coolest freaking names that were so freaking hard to remember, because they were like quantum level, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds like this big giant, and it was cool. And I was like, awesome. Now, again, human involved, right? Because I manage the brand, not the AI, but I'm managing the brand through AI. I go back to AI, I said, that's awesome. We need to make sure this is brand worthy, which means I need it to be easy, relevant, memorable. When they think about the name, they instantly sort of understand what the thing was if they've learned it, right? They go, oh, ping pong, that's right, because we bounce back and forth the prompt. And it came up with like 7 different names for that. And ping pong prompting was one of them. And I'm like, well, that's perfect because now it's like a private school. We teach ping pong prompting. Done.
Yep.
That's simple. But that came from AI. That wasn't me that thought about that, but it was me that created it and accepted that as an answer. Right. So I created it through AI. AI reflected it back and I go, yeah, that makes more sense. Let's add that. But I make the decision always. It's not just, I'm not just saying, oh, well, that's the brand now because AI told me that's the brand. AI gave me the suggestions and I decide. So I think you always have that control as a human, that you're the point of creation. So you are obviously in charge of the brand. It's never like, I don't ever think like I'm part of the machinery. I think it's kind of like, and I think you mentioned this before, like you're you're wearing a mechanical suit with AI, right? You're enhanced. Your muscles are stronger. Your brain is 1,000 times more powerful because of AI. So you can either do it the old fashioned way and kick out your brand with a typewriter, or you can kick out your brand with this quantum computer that is AI. Not that it's exactly quantum computer, but you get the idea. It's monumentally different tools. You can still do it. But if you and I were going head to head, I would create a bigger brand faster because I can move faster, right? Than you spending all this time and effort putting it in. You might have an awesome brand. It's just it's going to take longer. And I think with AI, you could iterate a lot faster on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I don't know if I like the concept of it. I'm not sure that would actually happen because of the authenticity factor and just getting that into place. But I totally understand what you're saying, because honestly, like you said, ping pong prompting. I'm going to call it triple P from now on. Just wrote that down. But it's like the speed to putting yourself out there. We're making it so you can put yourself out there faster. You can put your thoughts out there. In the past, it would have to, like, we do this a lot actually with other decisions, like calling it Profit School by Measure You. That was a shower thought. That was like, hey, how are we going to solve this thing? So honestly, like, what I have to do is I have to think about a problem, or you have to think about a problem. And then one day it comes to us, and it might be a week later. It might be 10 months later. Like the Profit School brand just wasn't right to us for a long time. We went through so many iterations of what we were doing, and we realized that we don't think it was ever meant to be a completely standalone brand. It's actually a part of Measure You, just a completely different thing. And once we had that, it allowed us to do a lot of stuff. Like this podcast became a video podcast. We started doing our YouTube publishing. That stuff happened, and that was a key to the brand. AI probably could have made that happen faster, right? If we would have known to look for it, just like with ping pong prompting, you got to that point. Otherwise, you have to wait until that time when you have clarity, when you're away from technology. So this thing is working for you 24/7 versus you're not always working for yourself 24/7. So that's definitely an advantage, speed to getting yourself out there. Instead of being a one-man band or one-man brand, if you will, you have the power of hundreds and thousands of different people's knowledge through AI. Because otherwise, it's like you and me ping-ponging back and forth. Like the old version of this thing a year ago was just us ping-ponging ideas and then making a final decision. Now it's AI aided, and we're coming to decisions much, much faster as a result.
Right. Which is that whole speed to result concept, right? Collapses time gets you to the market faster so you can iterate the brand, because brands need to iterate. They're not always going to be what they are the very first time you see them, right? Uber wasn't cars. I forget what their original company was, but it was nowhere near rideshare, right? Amazon was just that initial, hey, we're just going to do books, right? And now look what they are. So so brands morph, brands change over time. And I think maybe that's the challenge with this topic. People think like, oh, the brand is a static thing and I have to come, and it's not. So it's interaction with the marketplace, and it's what the market thinks about, recalls about your company, right? And the products and services within it, and us personally, right? Under our own personal brands, the Mercer brand, the Just Sour brand. So it's like, if we can use AI to constantly get more of that feedback faster from the market, we can iterate faster. The brand can then grow faster because it's iterating faster. We're knocking on doors that we know aren't going to work faster versus what we were doing before. Going back to the profit school example, if we had the skills we now have with AI, the way that we do it, the result prompting, the ping pong prompting, all that stuff, if we had these skills in house, but a year ago when we were talking, or 2 years ago, we were talking about this stuff, we would have already said, hey, here's where we currently are. We're trying to figure this out. Here's what we currently have. We need to carve out a conversation that is for business owners, because we're getting asked that in Measure You. And they're just business owner questions. They're systems questions, which is awesome, but they're not measurement related, but there's still a market demand for those that from within Measure You. We want to create this second brand called Profit School. What are the pros and cons of starting private schools separate, completely separate? How would you launch it? And
Mhm.
my guess is there probably would have been some sort of thought process in there that would have caused us to be like, maybe we should do this through Measure U first and then grow into that, because that was, and it would have helped us with that, versus we just never thought about that because we never asked it. So again, that's a little bit of a hypothetical, but I can very much imagine if we were literally just repeating the process today, going through that with AI would help us to have collapsed what took us 18 months to figure out,
Yeah.
and say, oh, that's actually, because once we did that move, when we said, oh, it's private school by Measure U, people went, oh, okay, well, then I want that. And it was pretty apparent pretty quickly. Right. The other thing was the AI stuff, right? When we started going AI, I think that's a brand that private school's getting because we started using AI. That's humans saying, you and I going, okay, private school can be AI first, right? We're talking about how to get business owners to integrate AI, to start working with their companies through AI, because when you just have to do that. And if you don't, you're the horse and buggy going to get run over by the automobile maker, right? Like that's what's going to happen. So we have to do this. We know we have to do this. We jumped on it really quickly, and we started pushing out into the marketplace some of this training to see if there is something around that particular hook or angle, and there totally was. Now, did AI do that? Yes and no. Like, it's not like we went to AI and said, okay, what is the private school brand and what should it do? And it said, oh, you should train AI. But we're literally using AI to build private school, and we just thought, oh, we should just roll that into the brand. So in my perspective, it's like AI again is helping to build the brand. It's because it's literally what we're teaching. You can't really disconnect from it. I don't know how you could, like, in my head, I don't know how you can disconnect AI from anything anymore. And I say AI, it's AI and automation and everything else that goes along with it. I just think that's how work is done now. And if you're not doing that, you're forcing slower work, and which makes it more artistic and less business, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because you can spend 12 hours working on a logo, or you can get, and sketch it out and do all that stuff, and it might be an amazing logo. Or you could just get AI to kick out 3,000 logos in 5 minutes and say a little this, little that, and then within an hour have a logo that's just as good.
Yeah. I like that. So I definitely think that AI supports brand building and makes you more efficient, makes you faster. But I'm still on the side of like, and I think that even with like a corporate brand, like a company brand, if it's as a logo and not as a person, it's even easier to use AI to do just about everything.
For sure.
Because then you can plug that stuff in there and you can be like, here's what we stand for. So that's even easier. You don't have to really make a lot of human decisions. You can just basically just borrow from whatever somebody else is doing in another niche and just use it as your own. You can just reinvent the wheel. And there's a lot of brands that are coming up that way. Faceless brands, like on Facebook, they'll find a meme that's really popular and they'll just republish it, the exact same thing, and get a ton of views. Like, that's how brands, I think, are built now from a corporate perspective. And actually corporations, really what made their brand popular was product plus advertising plus putting it in people's hands. It's really just being around for a long time.
It was reaching impressions.
Yeah.
It's awareness.
It's consistency. It's that they're prolific. Those things are out there. And those are the same things that happen with a personal brand. So I think that a personal brand is a little bit different just because it is tied to a person. It is tied to their thoughts. It's a little bit more, you have to think about the person who's doing it, and they have to have some kind of approval system. But AI can make you more consistent, more prolific. You can build a system to publish that stuff. Because the funny thing is the personal brands we recognize are not usually just a person. They're never just a person. Mr. Beast has thousands of people working for him now. There's like the whole hiring manifesto about like how he wants every single person to be an A player in their own domain. His video editor is one of the most competitive video editors in the world, and there's 20 of them, right? His other co-host, his social media person is one of the most competitive social media people out there. Like they innovate these things, and then it probably, they use AI for efficiency. Gary Vee's another example of a personal brand. Alex Hormozy. These are teams of 20 plus people. And the reason why they became a brand is because somebody's got some thoughts there, but then everybody else on the team just keeps on making that better. They enforce those standards. They're prolific, they're consistent, and they're capturing the different formats. And so Alex Hormozy even says in his book that he does content like one whole day a week, and then that feeds the whole week, or like 2 days a month he does content, and that feeds the next month of content. Like Okay, that's not AI, but that's exactly what Mercer's talking about here, right? Is that you have a system, you have consistency, and you're doing these things, you're defining them. The difference is that you don't have to have 100-person crew necessarily to get a lot of the same effect. You could do
Yeah.
this with probably 5 people now. You can do this with 4 people
You
using
can do this
AI
with
to get to this
just
point.
one. You
Yeah,
can
you
do
can
this
do
with
it just
just one.
one
You
potentially,
don't
right?
need and that's the
Yeah.
beauty of this world now. We could build this entire company with one person if we wanted to,
Hmm.
right? So and that's the point is now you can do this. Like I was just going through because I really now I want to it's like this challenge accepted kind of thing on my end with you're like saying, well, yeah, the personal brand, because I get that, but a personal brand is just a process. It's oh, Jeff says it like this. Jeff often does this instead of that, but not all the time, but occasionally. And it's just a pattern. So if anything is a pattern, it can be AI'd and should be AI'd and automated if it's a pattern. Personal brands are a pattern. Here's how I would figure yours out. I would ask Gemini. I would obviously use Gemini. So I'm going to go use Gemini and I'm going to say, create me a series of statements or writings or whatever it is around this topic for the purposes of this. I'm going to give it to somebody and they're going to rewrite everything in the way they would have said it. The point of this document is once they do that, you're going to be able to use this document, analyze it so that you can figure out the pattern. And I make AI figure out the pattern because I don't know your pattern. I don't need to. AI will. So I will basically give you this doc. It'll have all these questions on it. You're just going to rewrite them in your tone, right? How you would say it. And so now you kind of have the before and you have the after. And then I'm going to go to AI and say, go figure out the difference between this before and after, and then make that, create that instruction manual. And then that's how we build that first Gemini gem, where you say, cool, now I'm going to put in the generic transcript I got from wherever, because it doesn't matter. It's going to be rewritten in the same way that that it thought you rewrote the first stuff using your patterns of that it detected that you have. And then we'll see if we get closer like that. Because I think then you start realizing like, okay, yeah, there is a way I can filter it through your Jeff character. Because from a brand perspective, Mercer is a brand, but he's a character in Measure U too, from very real from my perspective. Yes, it's me, but it's also the character of Mercer in Measure U. There's the character of Mercer in Profit School. I think about those characters as from a brand perspective, from a human perspective, from the business owner's perspective. I'm managing that brand, but it's outside of me. Like that's a process because that way I can get AI to help out with it. And how would Mercer handle this, or what would Mercer say about that? To your point, now you've got digital twins of the company where you can get more stuff done because you can run it through how I would say something, or I could run something through how you would say something and be 80-90% there on the first round. I think that's a huge collapse of time.
I love it, man. I just wrote down AI doesn't have ADD.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the digital twin actually can be way more consistent. It can be more focused and it can stay on brand. I like to start things. I don't always like to I like to do episode 1. I don't always like to do episode 100.
Yeah.
I like that we're doing episodes here, but as far as short videos and stuff like that, I like, let's get the ball rolling and then let's turn it over to consistency into systems. And so this is where Profit School really comes in. We say that we're teaching you AI first business, but we're also teaching systems to make it so that is a reality and it doesn't unravel, because the systems are just as important. So AI is only as good as a system you use for it, and having the ability to track it, to be consistent with it, and then to incorporate it into your business is equally important. Because Mercer could build me the best system ever, and if I don't have those gems installed, which he makes me do, he using our system, he's like, install this gem so you can use it. What I'm going to do is later today, I'm going to write a video script, and I'm not going to do anything we talked about in this thing until that becomes something that's in a system. If that makes sense. Like until I have a system that's so easy that a caveman can do it, I'm probably still
Yeah.
going to do it the manual way, even though I see the value in building a brand this way. And my final thought is ultimately that 99% of the things AI can do right now, I went into this thinking maybe 75%. Mercer helped me identify about 99% of things AI can do. And if all I'm doing is showing up and clicking that button, that is a way that AI can help you build a brand.
Did I just score points? Ooh,
Haha.
I like it. Yeah. So let's on that sort of final note. I would encourage anybody who's listening to this at all to be like, okay, how can I use AI? Think about how you can use AI in all these different ways, because there's lots of different ways that we are all missing, me included. Like I probably do it more than most people do, but I'm nowhere near what friends of mine are doing right now when it comes to AI. There's so much more that we can use these tools for if we open ourselves up to that. right? So obviously, if we can help you out with that Profit School, you can go join the free community over at profitschool.com. We'd love to see you there. And with that, this officially wraps up this Business Unfiltered edition of the Profit School podcast by Measure You. As I mentioned, we do have the free community at profitschool.com, so be check that out over there. Technically one over Measure You as well. So if you're into measurement, you can grab us some stuff over there as well. And be sure to review, leave comments. Now that we've got them on YouTube, we can start interacting a little bit. So if you got questions, you want to do other topics for future shows, we'll do that as well. So with that, thank you again for listening to this episode. Please talk to others about it, because then you're not just exposed to new idea, but you're actually practicing and building skills. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.